There's a lot of interest in Google Analytics, and Trevor Beck is quite the expert. He's a certified Google educator and self-professed Mac guy. Trevor's been exploring digital analytics as part of MacEwan University's Web Services Department for the last 8 years. A teacher at heart, he enjoys sharing his knowledge and excitement for all things tech. Trevor also teaches courses for the School of Continuing Education. The courses he teaches for us, Taste of Google Apps and collecting and organizing data in Google Forms and spreadsheets. So I want to thank Trevor for being with us today and sharing your expertise. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Radka. I'm sorry I had a delay there for a second. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry for those of you that are suffering through the snow and that, but if we had sunshine, you know we would send it your way. Today's session, Digital Analytics for Beginners, we're just going to take basic looks at some of the stuff that people are often asking when they have their website. Who's coming, where are they coming from, that kind of information. I've actually created a document there at goo.gl/bnzzc1. For those of you that are in the session right now, I've just pasted the link into the chat. And anyone else that's watching this afterwards, you can just take that link. It just has some very basic information on our on the analytics. One of the things two things I want to really highlight though is help resources are always available within the Google Analytics in the top right corner. We'll take a look at that. But Google's Digital Analytics, there's a typo there, Digital Analytics Fundamentals is a course that Google does that goes through all the steps. So, I mean, if you want to learn anything about analytics, there's some video and stuff like that that's all through that course. It's a really, really good course. So I highly recommend if you're really interested in finding out more, that's one way that you can do it. As was mentioned, my name is Trevor Beck. I do have a digital analytics certificate from the University of British Columbia. I'm a certified Google educator. I'm a Google evangelist here at MacEwan University, longtime Mac guy and kind of a data wrangler. And that's why, you know, when we look at analytics, it's always so much fun to play with the data that's in there. A couple of things I want people to remember when we talk about analytics for your website. First of all, analytics is not an exact science. It's giving you general numbers. There's technology involved, and I'll talk about that in a second, that some people block, so we can't always get exact numbers. When we talk about people coming and accessing the website, sometimes you might have 3 or 4 people who are using the same computer. Analytics can't tell how many people are using the computer. It only knows that a computer, which is located at whatever IP address, is accessing your website. So it can't tell if it's 3 people or 5 people or 1 person. So as I mentioned before, it's not an exact science. However, what it does do for us is it indicates trends. So when we see that there's a spike somewhere in the number of people going to a specific page, we can go, hey, why is this page suddenly so valuable and so important? Might be that because there's some radio advertising going along, might be because there's actually an online campaign of some sort going along, whatever kind of promotion. So analytics doesn't work within itself. It works with other products and other services that you're using, and those trends will give us an idea of what's going on. And the other big thing is we talk about page views, not hits. Back in the old day, when the only way we could track information, we would look at hits. And hits basically meant how many times when I load a web page does it go to the server to get content. So if you take a look at the screen that you're seeing right now with the university logo, the text off to the right there, and those images, that might actually end up being 4 hits on that page. Back in the day, remember when someone goes in and they used to create their photos and they put all their photos on one page, then there might be 150 photos. That would show up as 150 hits because every time that we have to go to the server, that counts as a hit. And that's not very valuable when you have 150 photos versus 1 photo. Those hits doesn't really mean anything to us. And that's why we look at page views. Trying to move along here. Let's talk definitions. Digital analytics is what we're talking about. basically the collecting of information for us to analyze what are the behavior of our traffic. You'll quite often hear people refer to, oh, I need to get Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a tool. So digital analytics is the study of. Google Analytics is just one of many tools that you can use to collect that information. Google Analytics actually is an old product, and they've moved over to what's called Universal Analytics, which is a newer product that Google has. There's some really great advantages to it. If you haven't moved over to Universal Analytics yet, I would suggest talking to your webmaster or your web services people and try and get that code added on there. You can run that code on your site in addition to Google Analytics or any other services that you're using. So it's not like it's going to be double dipping and give you wrong numbers. It is a separate product, but there are some really cool advantages to it. Pageviews is that. When I come and load a page, so my home page, every time I load that up, that's a page view. If I load that page up every day, so for example, let's say I log in 15 times in a day, that's 15 page views. Even though it's one person, that's still only 15 page views. So sometimes we'll look at things called unique page views. I don't care how many times you loaded that page, because maybe it's my home page for my browser. So every time I load up Chrome or open a new tab or open a new window, it automatically loads up that page. That's not very helpful because it's still just the one person. So quite often we'll look at what's called unique page views. Bounce rate is the one thing that people look at and go, well, what the heck does that mean? A bounce rate refers to a page, page when I come to one page and then I leave your site. So the reason bounce rate is important is if I'm doing a Google search or if I'm using I've clicked on an ad that's being run somewhere on a web page, and I'm expecting to see information about piano lessons, and I hit a page that talks about wearing boots at piano lessons, that doesn't apply to me. So I'm going to close that page off. I'm going to leave your site. I'm not going to do anything with it. A bounce rate, quite often, depending on the situation, refers to that, could mean that whatever advertising we're doing and whatever landing page we're using don't tie together. So people aren't finding what they're expecting to find, so they leave. The other side of it is it could mean that they are finding exactly what they need. They don't need any other information and they leave. So something that has a high bounce rate on our website is the contact us. So I need a phone number. I found it on that page. That's all I need this website for, so then I leave. So depending on the situation, a bounce rate could mean a good thing or a bad thing. Sessions refers to the number of times I come to your website, not the number of pages, not the page views, but the number of times I come to your site. So if I happen to come in the morning and I come in the afternoon, those are two different sessions. I may hit a whole whack of different pages, but that indicates sessions. And sessions is good to let us know how often people are returning, how good of a resource our website is. And that's the whole value, right, is we want people to keep coming back to make sure that those sessions are valuable to them so they will come back. And the last thing that we'll talk briefly about is goals. As people come to our site, we have specific goals, and we want to track those goals. So, for example, at MacEwan University, one of the goals that we have is we have a link where people can go, click on, and then go and apply for a program. So for me, a goal is how many people have clicked on that apply for a program. So that's kind of a standard that I look at and say, was what we're doing effective enough that we got people to click on that link? And then I can take a look at ratios and rates and stuff like that to see whether or not the goals are working for it. Because, of course, not everyone's coming to our site specifically to apply for the website. So how would you get started with your analytics? Well, the first thing we do is we need to have a piece of code installed on the website. And when I say the website, it has to be on every single page of your site. Sometimes we'll have people that have sites where they have one main site and maybe they have a pop-up window that points to a different site. That code needs to be installed on all those sites because otherwise Google's not going to be able to track it. It's a piece of JavaScript code, and one of the fallbacks, I guess you could say, one of the things to keep in mind is that not everyone turns on JavaScript. You know, quite often in your security preferences you can say, no, don't load up JavaScript. Because it has in the past been used for malicious uses. if someone does that, we can't track their analytics. Even if the the code is enabled on the site, they're saying on their browser level, nope, don't load that up. So we won't be able to track things, which is why I said it's not an exact science. Assuming you have your Universal Analytics or your Google Analytics or whatever other piece of tech you're using, the next thing you need is a Google account. Because it's a Google product, you need to have a Google account in order for you to be invited in and given access. So if you are a Google Apps for Education member, you automatically have a Google account. If you have a Gmail account, that's a Google account. The next thing is whoever's running as administrator for your site needs to grant you access. So what they will do is say, okay, we've got analytics running on here for this particular website. I'm going to let X, Y, and Z people have access to it. And one of the nice things about when we give access to people is there's nothing you can do to destroy it. If we give you read-only access, the data's been collected, you can manipulate, you can play around, you can experiment, you can do all sorts of things, but you cannot touch or wreck the original content. So there's a lot of people when they start playing with this, they go, well, I'm afraid to do anything. You can't touch the original data. You cannot delete anything. So, rock and roll, play around, have as much fun as you want with it. Last thing is, we need to go to google.com/analytics. Once you're there, you'll be prompted to log in, and whatever properties that you have available to you that you can see will show up on your screen. So I'm just going to quickly pop over to my analytics page. I've logged in, and there's a number of these properties here. Basically, think of them as if I was doing analytics for 15 different companies, they would all be represented here as 15 different companies. Within each company, they might have a number of different servers. So I could go in and here's this company called McEwen.ca. There's a number of different servers, or there's a number of different ways that I'm collecting information. The one we're going to look at today is www.mcewen.ca. So when we log in, by default, we go to the audience overview, which is pretty straightforward. It gives us an idea of what's happening right now. You'll notice in the top right, there's the date up here. So it gives us the range. And that range can be expanded. So I can go in and change the date at any point in time. That's handy when I want to look and see what activity has been happening over, let's say, the last year. And maybe I can tie that into, I know that my continuing ed department is doing some advertising on some specific courses or programs. I can try and see if there's a correlation to increased traffic by looking at the information. Earlier, I was talking about what to do for information or for help. This little grad cap here, if you don't see it, just click on it. When you go in, gives you all sorts of information about the different tools or the different reports that are available. There's the Analytics Academy that we talked about, and it gives you some really good explanation of what these tools are for, what you can use them, and how you can use them. So here's my audience overview. Just a very generic look at our page. You'll notice these ups and downs, and you can see here it's the dates. These are sessions we're looking at here. Take a look. We can see, oh, Saturday and Sunday seems to be pretty low. Well, yeah. When I'm on my weekend, the last thing I want to do is go researching or doing any work at McEwen. I'm often, and other people are the same way. So I can actually take a look at that based on a day, what the week looks like, or if I had a larger date range, I can show by month. Keep in mind when you go for a larger date range, you're asking for more information. It will take a little longer for those reports to be generated and come in and to be displayed here. So let's take a look. According to, and again, assuming that we've got all our code in place, and I have a sneaky suspicion that there's something's up here with our users, but according to this, we have 365,000 sessions that have been done during this time. We had 175,000 users, 1 million page views. The average time on, or a number of pages per session is 3 pages. The average time is 3 minutes, 23 seconds. We have a bounce rate, and how many people are, these are new sessions. And of course, we can see over here, new visitors versus returning visitors. And as you put your cursor over things, it will give you an explanation of what this is and what that means. So under sessions here, the total number of session is a time period, active, engaged with your website. So this, off to the left here, is our menu. and then it's all the information that we're going to be able to find of what's going on. We could get information on our audience, our acquisition, so how did we get them? Once they got here, what's our behavior, and our conversions. One thing I like to show people is the real time. So right now at this particular time, there's 126 users on the site, and I can see my top referrals right now are coming from eCampus Alberta. Don't have any social networking stuff going on right now. Here's keywords that people are typing in to get here, or to find the content, and our top active pages. So there's our home page, then there's our program listing, our current student page for, looks like Arts, Bachelor of Arts. And so I can see here on the whole website, these are the top 10 pages. And it updates every, I think it's every 30 seconds. This is what I like to look at, is the map down here. Whoops, and we're refreshing a bit more than that. The map here, because it will show me wherever people are coming from. You know, a little map. This is really good if you come in early in the morning, like anywhere between 12 and 7. You get a lot more people coming over from, you know, the European countries and the Asian countries, because of course they're about 8 to 12 hours ahead of us. So this can actually change at any point in time. Because this is just an overview, I can also go down into a little more detail. So there's the breakdown by countries. If I click on that, it gives me a breakdown by cities, which of course, because we're located here in Edmonton, most of our people are coming in from Edmonton. But it's easy for me as an advertiser. I could say, you know what, there's this big bunch of people here. What's this all about? Well, that's Toronto. Well, maybe we should do some advertising in Toronto if we've got that many people visiting us. Now, keep in mind, this is live right now, so I would look at a report that said, hey, over the course of the last month, how many or where did people come from? And we'll see that later. Traffic sources. Well, we've got people coming directly. We have our organic searches, so they're coming in from Google here. So we have 33 people are coming in from Google. And at this point in time, some of them, we have what's called not provided. Sometimes we can't collect the information that they're searching on. And so Google says, oh, it's not provided. It could be because of the way they've set their browsers up. It could be because of the way Google is trying to protect people more and more. But I do see that someone has typed in Bachelor of Psych Nursing. Again, keep in mind, this is live time. A breakdown of content. What are people looking at right now? And this, of course, changes during the different times of year, the different things that are going on within the campus, whatever advertising is going on, that kind of stuff. I don't want to talk too much about events because it's probably not going to show up here, but when we take a look at page views, the information that we have here for page views refers specifically to number of people who have visited a certain page. But I cannot necessarily go in and say, hey, what exactly are they clicking on? We actually have to manually tag those. A harder process when you're using Google Analytics, but a little bit easier to do when you're using Universal Analytics. Events allows us to basically say, hey, if someone clicks on this link, I want you to tell me about it. So for example, a redirect or our top navigation on our website. Let me just pull up our website here real quickly. So I've just loaded the home page. Now that's all that Google by default is going to show me. But if someone was to go into here and click on our campuses, that would show up in here. Now I have that listed under our top nav, and see if our campuses will be under way down here somewhere. There it is there. So that was probably me. So events is a little bit more work involved in it, but it's worth it when you do it up front because it allows you to collect all the stuff that a page view, just loading this page, is going to show. Okay. Radka, am I going too fast? Is everything doing okay there? Okay, I'm going to assume that we're okay. If there is a problem, one of the moderators will send me a chat and let me know. So that's our real-time stuff. That's always exciting to see what people are doing right now. And here's another interesting piece. You can always see how many are here watching on their desktop, how many are visiting our site versus mobile. So let's take a look at some other information. Let's look at audiences. So audience overview is the one that we took a look at. And as I mentioned before, we can go into a little bit more details on some of the stuff. Now, the demographics of age and gender, there's some new code and stuff like that that has to be added, and it gets tied into social media and stuff. So I'm not really going to talk about that because that's, kind of like phase 3 of everything you would do. But let's take a look at geographical. So let's start with location. So this is kind of cool. We can see here, and again, we're looking at the time period from February 14th to March 16th. I'm looking at all the people that are coming, and I can just quickly put my cursor over areas, find out numbers, look at 459 sessions, 12 sessions, 32. So we can see where we've got interest coming in. Of course, we have the United States. Let's go up to Canada because I want to take a look here. I can see by region. So there seems to be, in British Columbia, there seems to be some interest in British Columbia. Maybe we could look at doing some advertising there. I can break it down by city. We can see that so Calgary, Sherwood Park, St. Albert are all in the Alberta area, but Vancouver, Toronto. Now we can take a look and go, you know what? We've got people who are actually looking into this stuff. The language thing comes from the browser. When you set up your browser or your computer, you indicate what language you want the information to be, whether it's English or US or whatever, and that's where that information comes from. So most people who are over in Great Britain would have this GB set up. English Canadian would be us. English US would be the Americans. But a lot of the browsers by default, when we get them, when we load them up, we'll pick English US. So I kind of combine the two together. I really don't pay a lot of attention to that language piece, but it's also interesting to see how many are using a Chinese browser or set up their browser to read Chinese. Behavior. This is important stuff. New versus returning. How many of our old people are coming in versus our new people, right? So there's our numbers there, our percentages. So we can take a look at that. So obviously, because we are a resource site, we want people to return a lot. If I was an e-commerce site, I want to get a lot more new visitors. I mean, we know the rule of if you're trying to maintain your site, you want to keep so many of your clientele coming back. But I also want to expand, so I want to get new visitors. So I want to keep an eye on that as well. And those numbers should obviously increase as I'm doing different advertising events. Frequency, how many times? And you'll always see something like this where people usually come, they'll, 1 or 2 times, maybe they'll find the information that they want and then they go away. So quite often you'll see this kind of a curve here. Then you get the students or the people doing a lot of research and they keep coming back and coming back. So the numbers start to increase up like that. You'll see that quite often with a lot of websites. And our engagement is how long are they here for their sessions, right? So some people come really quickly for a brief session, 11 to 30 seconds. So I might come here really quickly, find what I want, then I'm gone. That's all I need to do. I'm not going to bother searching anything else. Technology. This is good. As we're designing sites or redesigning new sites or updating sites, we always have the question, who do we design for? We take a look at our different browsers. And this is quite interesting because up to, I think, probably about 6 months ago, I think it was the last time I looked at this, Internet Explorer was top. Now, all of a sudden, Chrome has come ahead. So people showing up with our Internet Explorer, our Windows devices, there's not as many people are using the Internet, they're using Chrome. And we all know that Internet Explorer has some funky stuff that goes on, the way it reads web pages and stuff. Quite often you'll hear coders complain because I have to do this that works well with everyone else, but I have to add a little piece of code or treat it differently because of Internet Explorer. Well, they're down to 16%. Hopefully we'll see them way down here, and then we can just not ignore, or we can ignore them totally. And I just when I say that. But we can see here that we've got a lot of Chrome users. We've got a lot of Safari users. And Safari, of course, could also mean, are they coming in on the desktop or are they coming in on a mobile device? In here, these are probably more mobile devices, the versions and stuff like that. But even when we take a look at Internet Explorer, what version are we using? Those are all important things that to take a look at. Up here, as part of this display, I can look at different other elements. So the operating system itself. We have, of course, 50% of Windows users, 20% iOS, and 20% just slightly lower Macintosh users. So that's very interesting to see that. You hear a lot of people talk about the mobile. How many people are coming in mobile? We've heard that, oh, Android is kicking iOS's butt. But here, according to our site, what we're seeing is that, no, we still have like 20% up there and only 8% there. And these numbers do jump around depending on the time of year. And again, as I'm developing websites and stuff, I want to know what they're doing. Screen resolution. What's the most common screen resolution? So we can check that information out. It used to be that we would design for 1024 by 768 a long time ago. I don't even see that showing up here anymore because that's our old 15-inch square monitors. Well, no one has a square monitor anymore. So as we develop stuff, we want to take a look at those numbers. Networks basically refers to our service provider. So here I'm getting a lot of traffic from Shaw, about 30%, TELUS. So those are the two big ones, and of course they're within the Edmonton area. MacEwan University. If you're using MacEwan University's services, you're using MacEwan University as a service provider. So if I'm surfing right now, I would show up as coming from MacEwan University. I would also show up if I was using a lab or something like that. And so some reports I might want to go in and say, hey, you know, anytime there's a service provider from MacEwan University, I don't want to see their stats because they don't apply to what I'm doing. I just want to see external to here. So there's ways of calling out and saying, you know, keep this, don't keep this, and so we can get better accurate results. And then we can see our Rogers people and Bell people who are coming in from the east, University of Alberta, and of course it goes on and on. In the reports, we're only seeing the top 10 people, or sorry, the top 10 rows, and we can expand that to how many rows that we want. I'll talk a bit more about these other items that you see up here when we get into the behavior. I think it's more effective and more useful there than looking at these kind of stats. We don't use these stats very often, but it's nice to have them really quickly just so we can take a look at them. Desktop, mobile, tablet, 70%. 23%, 8%. So sometimes when people say to me, oh, we have to have a mobile solution, well, okay, let's take a look at this. We're looking at 23% plus 7, so we're looking at approximately 30% is on mobile. Now, the mobile version, back in the days of the old flip phones, was really important because you had that screen that could only look at text. Now we have smartphones, and smartphones can interpret a web page properly. And you have the zoom in function and the zoom out function you don't have before. So when people start talking mobile, my first thing is, well, okay, do you really need it? Like if you only have $30,000 to spend, would you rather spend it on something else or spend it on the mobility side of things? If you take a look at these stats, you can easily go and say, all right, I have 30%, but of that 30%, most of them are coming in off of smartphones. So let's take a look at our smartphones here. The Apple phone, 45. iPad, 20. So we're at 60% there. Something's not set. And then I would go through and add the rest of the stuff there. So right now, what did I say? We're at 45, so 65. This actually, 6 months ago, on the iPhone and the iPad and the iPod was closer to 80%. So even in the last 6 months, this has changed drastically. But even still, I've got those. I have these Samsung smartphones, this Google smartphone. I don't see any flip phone kind of information hitting our site. So I would say people can still read your site. So do you really need to go mobility? Not to say that there's not a value to it, just saying if you need to make choices, this is where you can find that information. So that's audience that I want to talk about there. I'm going to skip acquisition for a moment, and I want to get into behavior because this is the meat and potatoes of why we're all here. So behavior refers to a lot of the content and what's going on. So there's our page views, there's our unique page views, the average time, the bounce rate, and the exit. And when we look at this site, we are looking at the full MacEwan website, everything that's available to us. Here's all that information, again, the top 10 important page. So I always like to go to my site content. and show all pages. So it's still the same information, but I can go through and I can get a big long list of all the pages here. So I know where my top 10 pages are, I know where my top 20 pages are. But sometimes I want to be more concerned with what's going on at the bottom end of things. Because if a page is only getting hit once every 30, 40 years, then there's no value to it. And to me, I'm of the mind of a clean internet is an easy internet to search. So a clean website, the less garbage you have in there that's not being used, then the less that we need to actually keep it. And as we all know, everyone says, yeah, I want a website, but it's not until you actually get it that you realize, hey, it's actually a lot of work to keep this thing up to date and do work on it. And I just thought I could just put it up once and just leave it. No, we need to maintain it. We need to update it, especially when we're making use of things like AdWords advertising and campaigns and stuff. You need to change that up so that your viewers are going to get to see what they want to see. So let's go through these items up here. So we have our page views. We have our unique page views. And in unique page views can, if you think about it, it's kind of like I'm only counting that one person or that one computer. So it's kind of like a person, if you think about it, right? Because I'm not counting every time that computer hits here. There's got to be someone maintaining that computer and typing it in. So unique page views can be considered a person. Keeping in mind, again, of course, if I'm at a lab, a library, or something like that, there's a whole whack of people making use of this. So it's not truly accurate, excuse me, but it is giving us an idea of trends. Average time on page. Average time on page is valuable in the sense that it can tell us how valuable is it to somebody else. If they spend a lot of time on a page, there's got to be information there that they're reading or that they're interested in. Typically, that's what you think about. So that's a really good thing. If the average time on page is really, really short, then they've looked, can't find what they want, they've moved on. So you kind of have to do some interpretation and take a look at the way people, like what they're searching for and the way they've come to these pages and stuff. Because if I'm looking for music lessons and it's short time, did they find any? Was there any music lessons on that page? We need to look at that. And that helps you decide whether or not you need to rewrite your copy for your page text or not. Entrances. Entrances mean it's their first point of contact for your website. So, for example, someone might have typed in MacEwan University, which is very typical for our site. But if I look at programs here, maybe they typed in MacEwan University programs, and this is a search result that came up, so they clicked on that. This was the first page they hit. They didn't come to the home page. They knew kind of specifically what they wanted. They came there, and we can see that this is the entrances. Entrances are good. That means that people are finding our content or making use of the engines and stuff or links from other pages to get here. Here's the bounce rate we talked about. 17%. I've been told that if 22 and higher is something that's not good. So you want to try and bring things down a little bit lower. Again, keeping all in mind about the bounce rate stuff that we've talked about, right? If they're finding the information they want, then they've come and gone. So when we take a look at these pages here, so 39% here, 40%, 60% here. What page is this one? This is our careers. So a 60% bounce rate. So that's a listing of all the different jobs available here at MacEwan. So it's just one long listing. So if I search for MacEwan careers, I came here, I didn't find any jobs that I could apply for, and I left, that's my bounce rate. And that makes sense because people are coming here looking for something on that page, they're gone. If I had something higher, let's go take a look, see what else we got here that I could reference. Maybe high school courses here. Maybe they came here, well, no, they probably looking for something there as well. Well, let's assume, just for the heck of it, that they've come in here, and it's not a very valuable page, whatever it is I'm looking at. If I have a high bounce rate, that means that, yeah, people are not finding any value in it, and they're leaving right away. So I have to track and say, okay, well, why are they coming here? How are they getting here? Are they using a Google search or a search engine? What keywords are they searching for? And if I take those keywords, are those keywords related to whatever content shows up in this page? So bounce rate's very good for helping us with that. exit. This is the last page I was on the site when I left. I may have traveled the whole site, gone through everything, and for whatever reason, I've left here. You can see exit here as well, and it's fairly high because I may have started up in here, I may have gone to HR, gone to the career page, then looked and said, nope, I'm out of here, and then I've left. So that, again, makes sense why that would be very high. So let's assume that I've got this big list here, because I can go in and I can show you let's show you the top 50 just for the heck of it. So there's my top 50 pages. Now, when someone comes to me and says, hey, Trevor, I'm looking at the social work pages, what can you show me? What can you tell me about my website? Well, what I can do is I can filter out the information. And our filter here is based on the URL. So when I take a look at our web page here, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want to look at social work. I just happen to know the shortcut here. So there's the URL. I'm just going to grab this part here. Now, if I grab the /index, that refers to only this one page. I want everything under that social work heading. So if you'll notice, if I hit course list, it's social work / course list. So I just want to grab everything from here up to the front here. I could just throw in social work, but I find sometimes, depending on the term I'm searching for, someone else may have used it. So for example, if I type in publications, every program has publications. If I type in careers, every program has careers. I'm not finding the careers specific to social work. So I always like to do the big long URL. And I say, yep, show me the money. So now I'm just looking at social work. Excuse me a second, I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water here. Thank you. Excuse me. So now I'm looking specifically at social work. I'm looking specifically at this date range, and I can get all my information here that we're looking at. So here's all these different websites. As part of that, we're also going to have some search functions that we have will show up. But I can see where my important pages are. So here's my top important pages. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to go up and click on this item here. It's now going to list it from 0 to whatever. So here, these are all 111s. These are search functions that are built in, so I can kind of ignore those. I'm just going to go scrolling higher. I might have to actually so we have 180 pages. Let's throw in 100. So I can find an actual website. Really? Okay, so getting closer. Here we go. Okay, so here I have a piece of information that talks about the admission requirements for social work in admission 2. It's only been 5 page views in the last month. Is that valuable? I can decide whether it is or not. We have a certain requirement that we have to put the admission requirements up there. So we're going to, obviously I'm not going to take that down, so we'll leave that up there. The calculator and estimate, we had 10 visits there. We can see our social work admission year 1 is getting 12. So I can go through and take a look at the different pages and say, you know what, this has, over the 3 years that we've had it up, or the last 6 months or a year, this has had really low visits. We don't need that there. So we can get rid of it. One of my favorite stories I love to tell is, and any of you that have done any web work will hear this, I always get a program, or in one case I had the president come in and say, I need to have my letter from the president or greeting from the president on the home page. And he's the president. You can't say no. So I said, okay, we'll put it up there. A year went by, or 6 months went by. I went in, I pulled up the analytics to how many people actually went and visited that website, even though there was a link on the home page, and it was something ridiculous like 10 people or 15 people. I then went in and said, show me everyone from outside of the university. So don't show me internal, so in case he's checking it himself, it won't count that. It'll just count internal or external people. And it dropped down to something like 5. So 5 over 6 months, I now had some data that I could go to him and say, you know what, people don't care. I mean, it's well written and all, but it's not what they're here for. And then we were able to remove that. So the analytics can help you in all sorts of different ways, depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So I'm going to go back here and enter my social work piece in here. And here's my social work. If I click on this, I'm just going to see the detail information of just that specific piece of, or that specific page. So I can see my page views, my unique page views, all the kind of stuff that goes in there. So sometimes what we want to do, though, is we want to find out, well, what keywords did people use on our search engine to get here? And I can actually throw in what's called a secondary dimension. There's all sorts of different stuff in here, and you'd have to spend a little time understanding how Google works with these reports and stuff. But I know that I've got one called keywords, so I'm going to throw that in here. Now this is looking at my, I believe it's my internal search engine. So we're using Google on our search engine. So these are the keywords. My mistake, sorry. This is the external searches. So Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever. I can take a look and go through here and say, okay, so people getting here, we've got the not provided and not set. These are unable to collect for whatever reasons. But I see Grant MacEwan, MacEwan University, Grant MacEwan University. People type that in to get to this page. Now, they didn't necessarily come directly to this page, because if you look at entrances here, there's 34 page views here, but only one person actually had that as an entrance. So someone might have typed in MacEwan University, gone to the home page, made their way throughout the site somehow through either going through searching through here. They could have come through programming courses, fuel my full-time program, clicked on the link there to take me to the program. They could have come here a number of different ways. This particular report doesn't tell us that. And those become more customized reports where we have to go in and grab that detail out of the data that we have. But I can see that people are typing in Grant MacEwan to get here. And in fact, I know for a fact that most people, like over 50% of the traffic that comes to our website, usually types in some variation of Grant MacEwan, MacEwan University, MacEwan College, as we used to be known as, all these kind of different variations. So typically, these are the top ones you see, these three ones, to get to our website. But it allows us, though, to take a look and say, okay, for this page, this is how they're getting here. So when I look at other pages within social work, where to go? Go back here. So let's say field placement, for example. What keywords are people using to get to specifically field placement? Whoops, back to here. Going to here. I'm going to have to go back to my all pages, and we're going to put in a new filter. So 558 people visited. Let's throw in a secondary. What are the keywords that these people used? Not provided, not set, of course. Cooperative education, that's interesting. MacEwan University. Cooperative education again. And I'm not sure why this would show up separately, but there might be a space in there or something like that, or maybe there's a spelling mistake I'm not seeing. But cooperative education is very interesting. So people are using the term cooperative education. What are our bounce rates? Not a lot of data here. But ideally, if this is the term someone's searching in Google, then we should have cooperative education on this page somewhere, because that's what's searching. And when Google comes through, Google does what's called search engine optimization. So they come to your site and they look at a number of things. First of all, they look at what's the title up here. So we have field placement. That makes sense. What is the headings? Heading 1, field placement. Okay, that's all. So we know we can put this in a category called field placement. What's some of the text that we have in here? We can throw in some text in there. And then we have something called a meta description that is Google uses for search results. So if I was to go into a Google search and do, what was it, term was? Cooperative education. So MacEwan, social work, field placement. This little verbiage here is part of what Google looks at. And these should all be customized for every individual page. And that's called the descriptive, meta description. Google looks at all of that and then combines it all together and says, okay, here are keywords that we have found, here are keywords that you are providing us with. And in this case, cooperative education doesn't show up, but we know people are searching by that term, we should throw it in here. So that's really important to do stuff like that, because you need to talk the language that people are searching for. I'll give you a great example. People in one of our music departments, we had down there private instruction, but people were searching for piano lessons. Piano lessons wasn't showing up on the page, so we had to go in there and make sure we added that into the body of the message, so that when Google comes in and says, yep, if anyone's looking for piano lessons, we will pull up this site as well. If the words aren't in there, then you're expecting Google as well as everyone else to try and figure out what it is you actually mean. So even though, and this is really tough to deal with some faculty areas, that, you know, people who are very proficient writers and stuff like that, I mean, they'll talk the flowery talk, right? But the reality is we don't talk that way. And when I'm doing a Google search, I don't Google search that way. So it's important that you talk the language of your audience. And keywords is really good and helpful for going through your pages and finding out what are people searching for and start using those terms. Is it a lot of work? Oh yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, there are institutions that have teams of people that do nothing but make sure the website is doing what it should do. But what I suggest is you start with your top 100 pages. Go through, make sure that you've got your search engine optimization and all the keywords in there that you need. Get those going first. Then take the next couple hundred pages, and then the next couple hundred pages, and work through that way. Because there's no point putting a bunch of effort into a page that only gets 5 hits over the course of 6 months. So you can kind of work your system that way. The other thing you can do is you can, depending on who you're working with and how your web services is set up, is you can go in and you can have your team basically say, let's look after social work, and go through social work and do all that stuff. So I don't want to get too much into this because there's all sorts of cool reports that you can do. I mean, we can go by keywords. I can do what's called segments, where I say, show me only the people from Toronto, what they're searching for. Show me, so take a segment of our data, just specifically just that information. And all these reports that I'm working with right now and the customizations that we're doing, I can actually create these reports once and then save them in what's called a dashboard. So that report was always there. I don't have to keep rebuilding it every time. And I can share those reports out and use them for other areas. So there's a lot of work up front to get your analytics and your reports that you want. But I mean, once they're set up, the value is really, really amazing. Okay, content drill down basically just means if I start at the very top, so we start our WCM, then where do we go next? Those are our schools, prospective students. Those are all kind of like the different folder structures. So however we organize our folders for this information, that's what that content drill is. What are our top landing pages? What are the people seeing? Remember, a landing page with a high rate does not mean it's a popular page. It just means that people are coming in and looking at it from a Google search or a link off of another website. So they're coming from somewhere else. This is their first spot to us. So it might be high here as compared to all the other landing pages, but compared to the website as a whole, yeah, it's nothing. So you have to keep that in mind. But it's always important to see what our landing pages are. And again, I think we can go into here, and I look for secondary. Do you see where it says source? I could say, show me the source for this page. Source meaning where did they come from? Google, direct, Bing, Yahoo, ALS, continuing ed. I'm not sure where emergency is or why coming from sport and rec, but those are our landing pages for this specific page, the human resources careers. And exit pages. Where are they leaving our website? And maybe we need to find out why are they leaving our site here. I mean, here, contact us. That makes sense. Submit an application. Yeah, done what I needed to do. Admission deadlines. Well, can't we take these people and redirect them to the apply page instead? We look at that. Looking at my time here, I see at 12 o'clock, just so we're aware. So I've got another 15 minutes and then maybe questions. Does that sound good? I'll let Radka, if you want to type in there, yes or no, and I'll just keep moving on. So, site speed, how fast are your pages loading? This is a good one because We get spoiled because we have high-speed internet. And there's still a lot of places that don't have high speed. There are areas within Canada still that have dial-up or satellite. So we get spoiled with our high speed, and so people start doing things like full screen flash animations, or here's a picture and they haven't resized the picture, and so there's a photo gallery. The photo gallery, remember the old days of dial-up where if someone had like 10 pictures, you'd watch it, and it would, as each page would slowly load that one picture, kind of like, line by line, then it would go to the next one. For those of you that remember that's because they had full-size images where they should have reduced them down in size. So if it took 10 seconds to load one photo, 60 photos is going to take 6,000 seconds. Do the math. It's way too long. No one's going to wait around for that. We used to, at one point when we first got our website up, we had that problem with our programs page. So when I look at, whoops, that's not the one I want. Okay, this will work. But see all these images? They had actually images that were full size here, and they just squeezed them down. You still have to load the full size down, or full size of that page, even though it only view here. So what we had to do is I was looking at our site report, and it said this page takes forever to load. I had to go in and actually manually reduce the sizes down that to get our page load times up faster. Because this is a really important page for us. This is where people come to say, yep, going to take a course here. But if it takes 20 minutes to load these, it's like, no, I'm not waiting. I'm out of here, and you lose your people. So taking a look at your page timings and stuff is really good. Google also, I can't remember, they've changed this so much in the last 6 months. I think what they'll do with some pages is they'll even have speed suggestions. So they'll actually say, you've got a photo here that's too big. You need to download or reduce the file size of that photo. And we'll assume the report came up. Assume it. Site search, if you're using Google Sites, Google search engine on your website, you can get the search terms there, because anywhere else we're picking up the keywords is coming from the search engines, external. This was on our website. So not a lot of people tend to use an internal search. I think when we looked at it last, it was something like 15%, 8%. So usually people that are making use of that do have a specific thing in mind, so we can take a look at what's going on. Exam schedule shows up here. Later on, exam schedule shows up much higher. So we want to make sure when we, at those dates, that we make sure that it's really easy for students to find exam schedules. Now, events is my favorite. Remember I told you that when I go and put in and I load a page here, I can't tell you who's clicked on what in here, right? Because even here now, there's an apply now. Actually, let me go into our apply page, because this is a good example. Apply. So I can tell you how many people came here to apply. What I can't tell you is how many people actually went to the next step where they go to Apply Alberta. So all the institutions in Alberta, you can apply through one portal, one place to go through. But I can't tell how many people left here and went there. Those analytics would belong to the Apply Alberta people, so they don't allow me to track it. What I can do, though, is I can put in a little piece of code that says, hey, if anyone clicks on this, count it and let me know. And that's what I've had to do in the past. So I'm going to take a look at my my top events, or my overview of my events. So these are stuff that I've manually clicked in or what have you. And I'm sure that I would have set this as a redirect. So I'm just going to go take a look into here. And I'm going to look for apply. Yeah, go in here, get over there. Let's see the content. Gonna have to try and remember it. Sorry, just give me a sec here. So that would have been, let's go back up top. Top pages, redirect. Okay, so let's take a look in here. So I have 162 people, it looks like, that have clicked on that item. So what I would do is I would combine that with the number of page impressions or page views of this site. So I might have 3,000 page views. Of that, only that number actually clicked on this link. So by default, as I mentioned, this is not something that Google does manually. You have to kind of build that in. It's a lot easier to do with Universal Analytics now, that you can build these things in. And in fact, the nice thing about it is, unlike what I had to do here, because Universal Analytics didn't exist at the time, you do not need to have HTML access or code access to plop that code in there. So before, I had to actually go in here, put in some special code in order for it to trigger. With Universal Analytics, anybody who's got access to the analytics can go in and say, hey, I want to set up a special situation that if anyone clicks on this link, you will count that and tell me how many it has. Universal Analytics has got some really great things for you to do. And again, it's an education, and Google does have, if you search for Google training, you'll find all sorts of trainers in town, some distance stuff that will do that, that'll help you out with that. I'm not going to go into any more of that. And one of the other things you can do is called in-page analytics. Now, the way our site is currently created, it doesn't always work very well. And I'll show you why in a second. Come on. Come on. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to pull up a page. I don't remember which page it was, and it will actually go through and show me, so what it would do normally is it would display the page, and it would actually have percentages of people who clicked over here based on some tracking code that Google has used. Now, because of the way we have these drop-down menus like this, Google sees all of this stuff here as the same thing. So if I click here, it doesn't see it any difference. It counts it all the same, which is why I've had to manually go through and tag this stuff. Universal Analytics actually has some ways of getting around that and viewing that information. So that's going to help out with that. Unfortunately, I can't show you this because obviously there's a problem there, but normally it will give you some information there. Typically, though, I stick with the behavior stuff. I stick with the audience stuff and take a look at that information. Last thing I want to show is the acquisition. All traffic. Let's see if they're going to, how this is working. So here we can see from Google, it's organic. I've got some stuff coming from a place called FeedBlitz. FeedBlitz is a RSS feed reader. So some people are getting to us from their RSS feed readers. I see something here, Google CPC, that typically indicates that someone's doing a campaign somewhere. So somehow they have, maybe they're running ads in Facebook or on AdWords. So when you're doing a Google search off to the right, you'll see ads related to whatever you're looking for. So someone has a campaign running right now or during this time, and the cost per click refers to that. So we've actually had 3,734 people click on a link and come over to here and look at our stuff. That's what that shows us. We can also take a look at social networking. So, we had during this time, of the social networks, Facebook came over here. We had Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. I have no idea what this is, but Yelp. So people are still finding us from other places. Now, in this case here, we can't see exactly what page because Facebook is kind of behind. You have to log in for a lot of stuff. So we may not be able to see the exact page it's coming from. We can collect that in other ways, and that's using some tracking tools of tagging, the way we tag our links and stuff. But there is all sorts of stuff that you can take a look at to see. I suspect the reason that we're seeing Facebook so high is that there may be some advertising going on in there. Here we can see, so these are parts of some of our campaigns that we're doing right now. So I can see the pages that they're landing on. So it looks like this campaign here, this page here that they're looking at is doing quite well. Students Building Strong Foundations is a very good page. And I might have like 5 different ads running, going to 5 different pages. It looks like this one here, Darka Tarnowski, isn't pulling as popular as this one here for whatever reason. Could be the picture that's being used, could be the text in the ad that's being used. All those kind of things are part of why people click on a link to come to our site. And we can track that stuff. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we're going to do. I'm sure your heads are probably splitting and going in all sorts of different directions at this point in time. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to turn my mic off, and I'm going to ask that you, I believe if you want to have a question, click on the hands thing, and I'm going to let Radka take it from here.
Great, thanks, Trevor. Lots of very interesting information. I don't see any questions so far in the chat room, so if you do have some questions, please enter those, or if you'd like to have the mic, we can do that as well. So I'll just give everyone a few seconds if you want to enter a question, or if you want to ask a question using the mic. So we have a question here from Brian. If you're using a Google site, do you need to add the code to every page?
Okay, yes, Brian. Anytime, because what happens then, and I'll show you, let's go into code view here. What happens is every time that a page loads, there's a piece of code that gets run. And as part of that, the code run, it's got to grab this URL here. So it needs to know that this is the URL. So this has to be different on every page. So you have to have that code on every page. Back in the old days, quite often what people had is they have a site that would say www.mcune.ca, and every time you clicked on a link here, it would still say www.mcune.ca, and you had no idea what page it's coming from. The analytics is kind of the same thing. You need to go in there and show it what you're doing and show what page. So it does have to be on every single page. And in here, I'll just show you really quickly. Whoops, my page disappeared. Go back here. So I've actually am running Universal Analytics as well as something called Tag Manager, which is a new function that allows you to do all sorts of cool stuff. But this is Universal Analytics. I go in, I create an account. It's for this domain here, and this is what the script here, every time it fires, is basically grabbing whatever action's happening here, grabbing the URL, firing it back to Google, collecting all the information. Any other questions?
Nothing else so far. We'll see if we have a few more coming in or not. It doesn't look like there's anything.
Okay, I'm going to assume that if there's no more questions. If you do have any other questions, feel free to contact me. In the meantime, I just again want to just highlight this Google Digital Analytics Fundamentals. I pasted that link in there for you guys. It's part of the document that I sent at the very beginning. There's the link right here. And as I mentioned before, when you go through it, they have all these videos and stuff that you can learn from. You won't get the certificate because they usually run this at certain periods of time, but you can go through and learn all the stuff, like conversion and conversion attributions. You can learn about different conversion reports if you're into e-commerce. There's a goal flow where you can actually, kind of like a river flow, you watch and take a look and see where people are doing stuff. Filters. One of the things that we do on our site, let me get back into my analytics here, is you'll notice when I'm looking at my behavior here, do you see how everything is lowercase? And sometimes on the website, it's uppercase. So if I have a link on the site, one of my people goes in and puts it in uppercase, one person puts it in lowercase, Google actually recognizes that as two separate instances. As far as it's concerned, that's two separate pages. So one of the things that we've set up is, as people are as Google collects the information, it says, you know what, I don't care whether it's capitalized or not, I'm going to turn everything lowercase. So this way I don't have to put in two searches, one with student build strong in caps, the other one with lower cases. Google's done this all for me. In the beginning, we used to do that, and I'd have to go through and it's like, oh, because I used to do most of the coding and stuff, but then someone else would get in, throw in something in there, and then I'd have to go through and go, well, I have to count this, now I have to generate this report, count that, add the two together, which just took a lot of time. So there's lots of really cool things that you can do with your data before it even shows up in your screen. I have reports set up that I can basically say, only show me external. because we're interested in advertising. So I don't care about the people that are already here. I don't care about the students and the staff that are at MacEwan. I want to know about Joe Public. So anytime that I'm looking at data, don't show me any MacEwan as a referrer or MacEwan as a internet provider. Just show me external. Or, you know what, I want to see, there's someone here from social work. I want to see all the pages that they've been to on our website, not just the social work pages. So I can see where they've been traveling and how they got to that social work page. So I can go in and add a segment that says, just show me social work, but show me every page. And sometimes you'll find out, oh, you know what, they spent a lot of time over there looking at the psychology. And then from psychology, they came over here. So obviously they have an interest in psychology and social work. Maybe somewhere in our advertising or our banners on our website, we can cross-promote. Hey, you know, if social work's not what you want, because you don't necessarily want to work with larger family groups, maybe you want to do personal psychology counseling. So we can throw in a banner on those sites and work back and forth. Okay, having said all that, I'm going to conclude this session then. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us through, I guess, emails or whatever. My email address is beckt@macewan.ca. It's in the bottom of the document there. If you want, by all means, please go ahead and fire some questions. I won't have the answers to everything, but I mean, I can definitely point you to some really good resources and stuff. And last but not least, Google it. You'd be surprised how many people have asked the same questions. Can I use Google Analytics to do ABC? Can I do this with Google Analytics? Can I do that? How do I set this up? I've done that a number of times, and a lot of stuff that I learned is from Googling it. So if you have a question, by all means, go ahead, Google it, find out the answer.